So this is our very first lesson of our writing class. Today we're going to focus on sentences. A few very basic things that we have to go over just really quickly is the structure of a sentence. All sentences start with a capital letter, and they should always end with a period, exclamation point, or a question mark. And it must include a subject, verb, and be a complete idea. For the rest of this video, I'm not going to talk about sentences. I'm going to talk about clauses. And not as Santa Claus, but when we talk about writing, there's two types of clauses. There's what we call the dependent clause. A dependent clause has a subject and a verb, but is actually not a complete idea. So a dependent clause needs an independent clause. An independent clause, it has a subject, a verb, and is a complete idea. If it makes it easier for you to remember, think of an independent clause as like the adult. It can stand alone because an independent clause is what we can call a complete sentence. It has a subject, a verb, and a complete idea. Something like Jenny is funny. We have the subject, Jenny. We have the verb, is, and we know what Jenny is. She is funny. This is what we call an independent clause. So if the independent clause is like an adult, you can think of a dependent clause as like the child. A dependent clause needs to have an independent clause with it in order for it to be a complete sentence. So a dependent clause again has a subject and a verb, but it's not a complete idea. So an example of this could be something like, since Jenny is happy. Here again, we have the subject, Jenny, we have the verb, is, but we don't have a complete idea. This is what we call a dependent clause. It's not so important that you remember this analogy, but it might help some students remember that an independent clause is like the adult. It's a complete idea. It's a full sentence by itself. A dependent clause always needs an independent clause with it in order for it to be a complete sentence. So now that we have a basic understanding of what an independent and a dependent clause is, now we can start talking about what are different types of sentences and different types of sentence structures. There's actually 4 different types of sentence structures. There's simple, compound, complex, and a compound complex sentence. We'll go through each of these in a little bit of detail so you have a good understanding of what each of these types of sentences are. The first type of sentence we're going to look at is a simple sentence. Basically, a simple sentence is an independent clause. Let's look at the example here. It says, the young boy listened to the theme song. Now, for all of these examples, nouns are going to be blue and verbs are going to be red. In this example, boy is the noun and listened is the verb. And also, it is a complete sentence. So we call this a simple sentence or independent clause. The second type of sentence we're going to talk about is a compound sentence. A compound sentence has 2 independent clauses joined by a conjunction. You can think of a compound sentence like a married couple. These are 2 independent clauses joined together by conjunctions like for, nor, and, but, or, so. So again, since these are independent clauses, we know that there's going to be a subject and a verb linked together by one of the words in the middle, like and, but, nor, so, for, and then another subject and a verb with 2 complete ideas. Let's look at this example of a compound sentence. Again, a compound sentence are 2 independent clauses. So it has, interestingly, many people dislike camping, but they enjoy hiking. So we know that since a compound sentence is 2 independent clauses, we're going to have 2 subjects, 2 verbs, and a coordinating conjunction. If we look at this example again, just the first half, interestingly, many people dislike camping. If we stop right there, that is a complete idea. We have the subject, people, we have the verb, dislike, and we have a complete idea. That is an independent clause. The second half of the sentence has the conjunction, but, subject, they, and verb, enjoy, with a complete idea. So if we just say, they enjoy hiking, that would be another independent clause. These 2 independent clauses, again, are linked together with a coordinating conjunction, but. The third type of sentence we're going to talk about is a complex sentence. A complex sentence has only one independent clause, that's one adult, and one or more dependent clauses, the children. The independent clause and the dependent clause are linked by subordinators. So if we keep following our analogy, we can see that a complex sentence is a single parent with one or more children. Now, I'm not going to read all the subordinating conjunctions and relative pronouns to you, but dependent clauses will most likely have one of these words somewhere in the sentence. So kind of look for these words and then they can tell you if it's a dependent clause or not. Let's go ahead and look at this example of a complex sentence. Again, a complex sentence is an independent plus a dependent clause. That means we're going to have at least two subjects and two verbs. Also, there's probably going to be a relative pronoun or a subordinating conjunction. The president who was on vacation last week did not approve the plan. Now in this example, president is a subject, who is a subject. Who is a relative pronoun, and in this case it takes the place of the subject. We also have was and approve as the verbs. Now we want to try to figure out which one is the independent and what is the dependent clause. The president did not approve the plan is an independent clause. Who was on vacation last week is the dependent. Maybe if we pull the two clauses apart, it's easier for you to see. The first part, the president did not approve the plan. Well, easily we can see that president is a subject, approve is the verb, and it's one complete idea. That is the independent clause. Who was on vacation last week? That is a dependent clause. We need more information here. So when you put the two together, we know who the who is. We know that the president is the who. The last type of sentence structure we're going to talk about is a compound complex sentence. A compound complex sentence has two or more independent clauses and one or more dependent clauses. Here, it can start to get a little bit complicated with all the different subjects and verbs you're going to be looking at. So for following our analogy again, think of it as a married couple put together with one of these coordinating conjunctions, and they have one or more children. So you're going to have two independent clauses and one or more dependent clauses. That means in a compound complex sentence, you're going to have at least three subjects and three verbs. Let's go ahead and look at this example here. Again, a compound complex sentence is an independent clause plus an independent clause plus a dependent clause and maybe more dependent clauses. So in this example, we have while the rain fell, the baby slept quietly and the mother watched. So we want to look at the different parts. What are the different parts? Well, first we want to maybe look at the different subjects. We have rain, baby, mother. We have three different subjects there. We also have three different verbs. We have fell, slept, watched. Now we want to decide what are the independent and dependent clauses. Well, we're looking for a subordinating conjunction or a relative pronoun for a dependent clause. We have the word while the rain fell. Now, because of the word while, that is now a dependent clause. Okay, so while is now our subordinating conjunction. Now we want to look at our independent clauses. We know that two independent clauses have to be put together by a conjunction, and, or, nor, but, so, something like that. So we have the baby slept quietly. That's a complete idea. We have the mother watched. That is also a complete idea. And it is linked together by the word and. I know this video is kind of long and boring, but let me just go ahead and recap just really quickly. So we're looking at four different types of sentence structure. The first one is a simple sentence. That means we have an independent clause. We have one subject, one verb, and a complete idea. The next one is a compound sentence. A compound sentence has one subject, one verb, a coordinating conjunction, another subject, and another verb with two complete ideas. The third sentence that we have is a complex sentence. A complex sentence is an independent clause plus a dependent clause. When we look for dependent clauses, we're going to be looking for subordinating conjunctions and relative pronouns. The last one is a compound complex sentence. In a compound complex sentence, we have two independent clauses and one or more dependent clauses. So in a compound complex sentence, you're going to have at least three subjects, three verbs, you're going to have at least one subordinated conjunction or relative pronoun, and you're going to have one conjunction like and, but, nor, or, so, for. Okay, you made it to the last slide. This is the longest video of the semester. Okay, but why am I telling you this? Why is it important to know these types of sentence structures? Well, to be an effective and interesting writer, you need to use different sentence structures. If you only write in simple sentences, your writing is going to sound too basic. It's going to sound very boring, very elementary. But you're university students. You want to have a higher level of writing. But if you write too many compound complex sentences, your writing starts to sound strange and it starts to get really hard to understand when you have 4 or 5 subjects and 4 or 5 verbs in each of your sentences. So what you really want to do is use a mix of these types of sentences. You want to use some simple sentences, some compound, some complex, some compound complex sentences. You don't want to use just one style. You don't want your writing to be too simple or too difficult for the reader.